The DHHR is responsible for providing and promoting appropriate health care to the citizens of West Virginia. We accomplish this using the grant agreements functionality to provide grant agreements to our stakeholders. So therefore, it's very important that we get these grant agreements out in a timely manner, which this system allows us to do.
Prior to the creation of the new CRM grants management system, there were many challenges that the department faced. We process approximately 1,000 grants annually, 600 of which have the same start date. And that's to a tune of over $240 million. So there's a lot invested in this process. The processing of these agreements was done completely paper-driven and affected over 180 some users, both programmatic and fiscal, that at any given time didn't know where an agreement was in the approval process. Once it left a specific person, they didn't know where it was. There were productivity inefficiencies. Data entry was time consuming, review was time consuming, processing was time consuming. Data was used from multiple databases. And it was really difficult to gather information on these agreements because it was housed in different places. Accountability. There was so much frustration with this process and so many issues, but no one could really put their finger on what the problems were. In terms of data that we needed to actually identify our problems and resolve those problems, we had no data. There was no reporting capability. Even something so simple as someone wanting to know the status of where an agreement was took multiple phone calls, multiple email exchanges, people looking physically for documents. There was no adaptability in our process. So if something changed midstream and we needed to impact multiple agreements, we had no other recourse but to do change orders, or very labor intensive, going out there to research what grant agreements were affected, make those changes. It was very time consuming.
The CRM grants management application has helped streamline our process by allowing for grant templates in the system. And this allows for the user to not have to enter as much information, therefore allowing for the processing of specific grants. Let's say, for instance, that they have 50 grants that they're going to send out for one particular type of agreement. Then they can actually enter that information one time and reuse it for all of those 50 grants. So it limits the time for entry for the process. The standard language that is included in these grants templates also allows for streamlined review processes. Since they are non-editable by particular users, we don't have to re-review all of the information on those 50 grants. Additionally, the development of electronic workflow and business processes has helped in the processing as well. With business flow logic built into the system, it automatically will catch certain things that have been entered wrong to allow for less review time. Additionally, there are simple generations for the grant document. So there are a draft phase when it's in process, so it eliminates a document getting out of the department that has not been thoroughly reviewed. So it always has a draft stamp on it until it gets to the end process, and only certain users have the ability to generate it without that draft watermark. The system also increases productivity by eliminating 4 separate manually maintained databases that were used previously. Additionally, all of the documentation for a grant is stored centrally in this system so that a person can just go to that grant and see all of the information for that grant agreement. The system also allows for more accountability, as it has audit trails embedded in the system so you can tell who changed what at any given time. Additionally, there are email notifications that go out when the grant agreement transitions to the next phase of the workflow. The roles that are assigned in the system allow for security so that a user in a particular role cannot edit a document once it has passed their level of authority. The system is also more adaptable as it is used to incorporate any legislative requirement changes into the grant templates, as well as it is integrated with our outside financial system. So it pulls the information from the financial system, whether it be the vendor information or the financial information, and loads it into the system. So any changes in those systems, it is adaptable to make those changes. The reporting functionality of the system is great also. There are many reports, charts, dashboards, views that can be utilized to manage the grant process. They can be utilized for executive level tracking. They can also be used for legislative progress and reporting, as well as internal auditing.
Our constituents were highly impacted, as well as our employees. It was common practice for us to receive multiple requests, phone calls regarding where a grant agreement was, where payments were. We couldn't make payments without the agreements being executed. So now, if there is an inquiry, then we have that data right there at our fingertips to give the status, but also the agreements are being processed more timely. So there are less of those inquiries.
Absolutely, the application has met the needs of the department. The agreements are processed more timely. We're able to identify issues in the processing and correct those in a timely manner. Access to information is available at the touch of a finger, and employee morale has increased.
In terms of performance improvement, obviously errors have been reduced because some of this information is locked down. The users can't alter it. Timeliness, data capture, the ability to identify problems and resolve those problems, the ability to have all this information related to an agreement in one place, and reporting capability. So if someone wants to know how many agreements were processed in this time frame, or anything relative to 1,000 grants, that's a large amount of information, but we now have reports that we can produce that information.
Planet has helped us through this process by being with us every step of the way. They've actually had weekly calls with us to go over the status and any issues that we may have, and in many instances, they know the business process better than some of our users.
In terms of our future plans, we plan on focusing on our monitoring activities and enhancing those capabilities. We're looking at more reports, more dashboards. We have a process, which is another manual process associated with grant application tracking, that we want to develop an electronic workflow, something similar to this, that we believe would help us track several pieces of information and streamline another paper-driven process.
Absolutely, I would recommend Microsoft CRM.